Hey, Brittany and Renee and everyone else who's here.
Good
Hello.
morning.
Hey, Ken.
Good morning. Did you have a nice Mother's Day yesterday?
Yeah, we gardened all day. It was perfect.
Great.
Yeah, so I got the carrots and peas and all sorts in. So that's kind of the way you want to do it.
Good. Nice.
Did you guys do anything special? It's tough when you can't actually
No.
see your kids.
No, not really. No, we really didn't do anything. Actually, well, it was a good Mother's Day present. Our son got his first vaccine yesterday. So
Oh, you couldn't ask for a better one. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been in the queue to get my oldest vaccinated for, I don't know, the last hour and a half or something. So no, if I call a 5-minute break.
it went really fast. He said he was 52,000 something, and when he first logged on, and it just flew through, pardon me. Oh.
Yeah. I think it was at 57,000 when I started or thereabouts. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No problem. So hopefully it'll move quick.
Yeah. And I think this morning is going to be fairly quick. It's
Hope so.
the last item, but
Yeah.
hey, Carrie.
Good morning.
Brittany, are Jody and Lorraine already here?
I don't believe so.
Okay. That's good. I'm not seeing them. So I'm glad it's not just my system. Hey, Sheena and Jackie.
Morning. I'm realizing that my computer doesn't work unless, or I can't hear unless my earphones are in. So
Oh man.
sorry, I've changed my settings and I was like, where is everybody?
Morning, guys.
Hey, I logged in and my name was Francis. I don't even know how that happened. My kids don't use my computer. All right, one more minute.
I always love how we can just sort of see Carrie's eyes. Like he's Batman or something. He's half masked.
Is that better? Because I show up and I'm like fully, like I'm from the
Yeah,
chest to my head.
Now we can see your whole head. Yeah,
Maybe I need to push it back further.
it's all good.
Are we hoping that we're going to be in person by August when we meet again? Can't hear you, but I'm assuming you're saying that you look forward to it.
I said, I think if the vaccinations keep going,
Yeah, it's
I
looking.
love that Saskatchewan has made their reopening or their relaunch tied to vaccination rates.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I heard today that 40% or 70% of people over 40 are almost vaccinated in Saskatchewan right now.
That's
And
awesome.
so if they hit those milestones, so it's
Yeah.
like an incentive to get the vaccine. I think it's great.
But what they did though there is that, so let's say for anyone over 75 hasn't had their second shot yet.
Mm-hmm.
So they're getting through everybody and then they're adding the second shot after. So
Okay.
Well, that's why I sent that thing to Prince Rupert to the COVID Recovery Task Force, because 85% of their residents have been vaccinated and they are good to go.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, it is 9:30. So we've got full attendance. So we've got myself, Councillor Mackay, Councillor Hughes, Mayor Herron, and we also have Councillor Hanson here. So that's great. So we'll call the meeting to order. Any issues with the agenda? No. Okay, Brittany's put in the motion there. If I can get a volunteer.
I'll do it.
Yeah, Councillor Mackay, go ahead.
Let the May 10th, 2021 Community Living Standing Committee meeting agenda be adopted as presented.
That's accepted. All those in favor? It's carried. Next up is appointments. I don't think we have anyone today, do we?
No, we don't.
Great, thank you, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
Approval of the minutes. Any issues with those? No. Councillor Hughes, can I get you to volunteer to read that one in?
Sure, that the Community Living Study Committee minutes of April 12th, 2021 be adopted as presented.
Thank you. I'll accept that. And all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, on to business. So the advisory committee minutes, we received quite a few of them. Any questions on those? Not seeing anyone. Mayor Herron, do you want to do this one?
It's a bigger one.
It is.
Thanks. Yeah. Hold on. Let's make it big so I can actually read it. All right. Is there actually a motion?
Yeah.
Where am I not seeing it? Oh, recommended motion. There it is at the bottom. Okay. That the Community Service Advisory Committee unadopted minutes of April 27th, 2021 meeting, Arts Development Advisory Committee unadopted minutes of March 24th, 2021. The Arts Development Advisory Committee unadopted minutes of the April 28th, 2021 meeting. The Youth Advisory Committee unadopted minutes of April 7th, 2021 meeting. The Seniors Advisory Committee unadopted minutes of the March 25th, 2021 meeting. And the Environmental Advisory Committee unadopted minutes from their March 25th, 2021 meeting. All of that be received as information.
Thank you. I'll accept that. And all those in favor?
Wrap it up in a bow.
Is carried. Thank you. That was a long one. Okay, so next up, we've got the Arts Development Advisory Committee recommendation for the Young Artist Legacy Award Program. And we've got Jody here. Do you want to quickly kind of introduce those recommendations?
She's muted.
You're muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah, so for the youth, we had 3 applicants that they wanted to provide the money for. So applicant number 1 was Ben Brown for $423.75, and he wanted a virtual writing program. Applicant number 2 was Mara Larman. She wanted $500 so she could attend a virtual jazz and contemporary summer intensive, School of Ballet in New York. And the third one was for Abigail Engel, funding request of $250 for a virtual creative writing residency program hosted by the Writers Guild of Alberta. So the total funding requests were $1,173.75. Which is well below the $1,400 that we were budgeted for.
Thank you. Any questions? I'm seeing nothing. Could I get a volunteer then to move that?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Councillor Mackay.
Yeah, I'm just scrolling up to the chat here. Sorry, Brittany. That the Community Living Standing Committee recommend to Council award the following applications for the Young Artist Legacy Award Program. First one being Ben Brown, funding request of $423.75. Sorry, Jody, I know you read all of these things, but I got to reread them. Ben's going to attend the virtual writing program hosted by Second City in Toronto. Number 2 is Mara Larmand, and her funding request is $500, which was approved. She would like to attend a virtual jazz and contemporary summer intensive at the Joffrey School of Ballet in New York. And number 3 is Abigail Engel, and a funding request of $250. And Abigail would like to attend a virtual creative writing residency program hosted by the Writers Guild of Alberta. And a total amount of $1,173.75 was added in by Brittany.
Thank you. I'll accept that. Do you want to add any comments there?
No, thanks, Jody. I appreciate it. I'm sure these were, I guess I don't know how many people actually applied for the grants, or were these the only 3, but you can see by just the what they want to attend, whether it's virtual or, I mean, it's just seeing how people are adapting in relation to our pandemic world. So congratulations to the 3 award recipients, and thank you to our committee members.
Thank you. Anyone else? No. Go ahead, Mary.
Maybe it's more of a question. Hopefully Marta's, yeah, there's Marta. You mean, Ken just said congratulations and he used the word approved. This is actually going to go to council first to get approved. I'm just wondering if we could skip that step. You got an advisory committee of residents who are advising it. You got a committee who's sitting here ready to recommend and approve it. Is there something, Marta, that we could do in the terms of reference to some of these things that we could just finish this at committee level?
I believe that all the recommendations, I'm just pulling up to double check. I was reviewing this morning, but the Community Living Standing Committee has to consider items that are brought before it and bring the items to recommend to council. There's no authority here to actually approve.
No, I'm not saying, like, is there something we can change in the terms of reference so that gives the committee the authority? Or is there something,
committee?
Yeah, is there something in the MGA that would prevent that?
No, there's nothing in the MGA. It would just be a matter of changing the bylaw so that the way that this standing committee is structured, it would be given that authority. And I think we discussed that at the time, and there was discussion about it, and certainly we could do it. It would just be a matter of changing the bylaw to write that.
Okay, I think that would be something we should consider. I think we probably were hesitant to do it at first to give the committee structure kind of a test run, but we really need 3 different bodies, and especially when you have a majority of council sitting here today to go through this, and maybe ask Jody to come back one more time and go through it. But I don't know. work that out in my own head, Marta, and maybe make a motion to do that maybe before the election, because I think that would be a good
Yeah, certainly we could do that.
reduction of red tape. But anyway, this has my full support.
Thank you. Councillor Hughes?
Sorry. We always want to bark at that moment. Since we're doing a double debate right now, I don't have an issue with the 3 individuals receiving the money, but I would have an issue if we actually said that this body had an authority to do that. And if we just look at what's happening later in this meeting alone, there's another recommendation from Csac for relating to the Genesis Club. So I think that council needs to make those final decisions. Because if we're just rubber stamping, great. But council is a body, a whole of 7 voting members, but regardless if people are here or not everybody gets to vote. And the council as a whole needs to make decisions about money and spending, and not just simply delegate that to other people. Because in some cases, it's a significant portion of money. And in other cases also, it affects people's lives dramatically. So regardless if it's convenient or not, this is about making sure that the council as a whole agrees with those statements. That's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you. And I just want to extend my thanks to the members of the Arts Committee that actually formed an ad hoc committee to look at these applications. So we're really lucky that we have some experience on that committee in terms of evaluating grant applications. Thank you to administration for their support with this. They were able to identify a couple of applications that did not meet the kind of requirements of the policy. So I think that was really helpful for the committee. So this is really a great way for that committee to get their feet wet in terms of reviewing grant requests. Well, Jody, you'll have to pass on our thanks when we meet later this month. And I'm delighted to see these 3 applicants getting recommended. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So thank you so much, Jody, for visiting us briefly. Just so you know, this will, I'm looking to Mayor Heron, but I'm confident that this item will go on to our consent agenda for next week. So it'll be, I mean, unless something really strange happens, it'll be approved kind of right off the bat at the beginning of our meeting with no comments. So thank you very much for your time this morning.
Okay, perfect. Is there anything else from the Arts and Development Committee that you're going to need from me?
That was it. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks so much. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye-bye. All right, we're getting through this. So next up is the CSAC recommendations for the community event grant program. And I believe we have Lorraine here, the chair of that committee. Lorraine, did you want to introduce those 2 recommendations? Welcome.
Hi there, sorry. Okay, so I have, the first one is for the Reoccurring Community Events Grants Program. We have the K40 Club of St. Albert for the Rainmaker Rodeo Parade, recommended amount of $6,500. The Royal Canadian Legion St. Albert Branch number 271 for their Remembrance Day ceremonies of $1,730. And the St. Albert Christian Ministerial Association for their Community Carol Sing of $2,000. Am I on the wrong one?
Yeah, you went to 6.4, Lorraine.
Okay.
It's the one before.
So the Rockin' August and Out Loud.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I just pulled up like the first one I had in front of me.
That's all right.
I'm trying to get kids.
My look of confusion.
Oh my God. Give me 2 seconds then. My apologies.
Not a problem.
Okay, let's try this again. Okay, let's try this one more time. Okay, so then for the Rockin' August, we have
I think it's the one before that, Lorraine. 6.3. So that would be the Jukebox Saturday Night and the Out Loud.
Yeah.
All right, I've got a bunch of papers in front of me here.
No problem.
That's the jukebox one, Lorraine. You had the right one there.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I apologize.
Okay.
You did have it.
Yeah, you've got the right one.
Sorry, yes, it's the Rockin' August for the jukebox. Okay. And sorry, I had one right in front of me. Now I don't. That one was for 5,000 for, like I said, the Rock in August and the jukebox. And then we've also got the Out Loud for their Pride event. Unsure exactly what that might look like at this point. However, they're gonna work with that to make it as COVID friendly as possible. Also for $5,000.
Great. Thank you so much. And I'll just to start off, these events, do we know when they'll make a decision about what is going ahead or what's not going ahead? I'm not sure if the committee asked.
Yes and no. They're both have a pretty good plan based on what the standards are at this moment. So that being said, it unfortunately kind of depends on what is going down at the time of the event. Most of them, well, actually both of them are very committed to making this event happen within the standards of what's going on at the time. So like I said, right now, they've got a good plan. Depending on what will happen, the hope, of course, is that by those event times, things will be a little bit less restrictive. I don't know if I could give you a date though, just because again, we don't really know. It could change at any time. So.
Fair enough. Thank you for that. Any other questions? No. Could I get a motion then to put those forward? Go ahead, Councillor Hughes.
Thanks. That the Community Living Standing Committee recommend to Council of the following applications for the Ad Hoc Community Grant Program for 2021 Spring Intake be awarded as follows. Jukebox Saturday Night Association Rock in August 25th Anniversary Celebration Parade for 5,000 and Out Loud Foundation for LGBTQ Community Supports and Services Celebrate Pride 5,000, total $10,000.
Thank you. I'll accept that. Any comments?
I have actually a few more comments for the other one, but that's coming up, but it's just the number of events are so low right now. Like I wish that there was a lot more, and it's just about the uncertainty about what's moving forward. And so I appreciate that the organizations that did come forward and are still trying to make something happen. I fully support people that are trying to make something happen right now, because it's about determination and trying to adjust without having any idea of what's going to be happening from day to day, and still having some kind of intention to put on something for the community. And if they're willing to do that, I'm willing to support them, absolutely. I just wish that there was more, but I understand with the circumstances of 14 months of it, having no idea what's happening tomorrow, it's difficult for organizations to put that kind of time and money and commitment into it themselves. But nonetheless, thank you for the two that did.
Thank you. Anyone else? Nope. I will call for the vote. All those in favor? That's carried. Excellent. Okay, so this next one is the CSAC recommendations for the Community Capital Grant Program. So I'm going to divide this up into kind of two sections. The first section is just the normal, like the applicants for this program. And then once we've completed that kind of discussion and vote, we can move on to the recommendation that's outside of the process, if that's all right with everyone. So Lorraine, did you want to introduce the four recommendations, kind of starting with Kinsman Club?
Okay, just give me again 2 seconds, shuffling through all these papers that I've got in front of me here.
I just switched to a two-computer system. It's so much easier now.
I got like so many screens open here, just trying to go back and forth there. Okay, so. Okay, and I don't think I even opened the right one over here. Nope, my apologies, give me 2 more seconds.
It is in the chat if you're able to see that. Brittany's popped it right in there.
Well, that would probably be faster. Thank you, Brittany.
Great.
So we have the Kinsman Club of St. Albert for the renovations and improvements to the Kinsman Banquet Center and RV Park upgrades. The recommendation was 41,250. For Muriel Martin Fundraising Society for the replacement of a play structure component, 2,661. Wild Rose Parent Society, it's the replacement of the same structure from the same company, also for 2,661. And then for the St. Albert Soccer Association, upgrades to Riel Field number 1, 27,847.
Thank you. So do we have any questions of community members or other members of council? I also see that we've got Anna and Diane in the room, if we have questions for them. No? All right. Could I get a motion for those ones? Councilor McKay, do you want to do that?
Sorry, I'm just unmuting. That the Community Living Standing Committee recommend to Council that the following applications for the 2021 Community Capital Grant Program be awarded as follows. A, Kinsman Club of St. Albert, renovations, improvements to the Kinsman Banquet Center and RV park upgrades, $41,250. B, Muriel Martin Fundraising Society, replacement of the play structure component, $2,661. And C, St. Albert Soccer Association, upgrades to Riel Field number 1, $27,847. And D, Wild Rose Parent Society, replacement of play structure component, $2,661 for a total of $74,419.
Thank you.
I've got no opening comments. Sorry, Chair.
Okay, that sounds good. So I'll accept that. Any other comments on this one? No. Go ahead, Councillor Hughes.
I just wanted to note that the total amount of 74,000 is significantly less than what we have for the budget of 250. We do kind of other intake, but the bulk tends to happen at the beginning of the year. And everyone who applied for grants this year were things that were imminent and necessary to do. So sometimes organizations will do things that, can be done at any time and decide to take it on. All of these are being done because there's either safety issues or most of them are safety issues or absolute necessary upgrades that needed to happen. And that's why they came and asked for this money. So, and in some cases they are going into their reserves to pay for their 2/3 of it because fundraising opportunities are limited. Just so you guys understand what's happening with the requests that are happening in this theme. Are definitely not optional. They are things that are necessary and they could not put them off. That's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Mayor Herron? Thank you. That is carried. Okay, so the last one, Lorraine, do you want to kind of introduce the recommendation regarding dynamics and maybe if you could provide some information about how that kind of came to the committee, if it was through dynamics or a member of the committee or how that worked, that would be great. Thank you.
Perfect. So basically, back when Dynamics first applied for the grant for their new building, they asked, I'm just looking for the numbers here, they asked for a total of 90,000. Right. At the time, we weren't sure with everything going on in terms of COVID and all this other stuff, what other kind of grants and requests that we were going to get. And so we were trying to be a little bit conservative with that in mind, anticipating that more might be kind of coming up. And it was a fairly large request for this new facility. So we were conservative at that time in our recommendations for the club. Now, having had some time go by and some more grant requests kind of go by, realizing we actually didn't get the requests that we had anticipated in terms of other groups and things. And in fact, it seems to be less just because of all the restrictions and stuff. So a lot of our events and activities and stuff are not able to happen in the way that they were. It was actually recommended by Councillor Hughes that maybe we should relook at this. Just because they're really struggling and they're working very hard within the community to make this happen. And as mentioned, fundraising is very, very difficult right now. There is just not a lot of extra monies going around and they are really struggling and to make this happen. So the recommendation was just, again, to go back and not necessarily give them new additional money, but to fulfill the full request of the 90,000 at the time. Oh, sorry, the full request of 94 815. So bumping it up to meet that request, just to help them out in that way, if that makes sense.
Okay, so did Dynamics speak to the committee?
No.
Okay. And was the committee aware that their project is completed and they changed their scope based on the funding amount they received last year?
No, we were not actually.
Okay. That's all the questions I have to.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no,
Yeah, no, that's really good information. So I'm gonna open it up for questions.
Sorry. Yeah.
And so we've got Lorraine here. We've also got Ms. Royer and Anger. So Mayor Herron, you have a question?
Thanks. Real quick, Lorraine, you said they're really struggling, but yet you didn't talk to them. I'm just wondering where the connection is with the need and the recommendation, because if you didn't talk to them, how do we know what they need? And especially because their project's finished. So that would help me.
Fair enough. Mostly from people that we know, just in the community, just general conversations with them, as well as I believe Sheena had spoken herself with somebody at the time. Yeah, maybe I'll pass it over to Sheena to clarify that.
So when we were having the conversation, Anna mentioned that when she had talked to the gymnastics club or to Dynamics, that they had said that they were struggling, as all organizations. So, but we were not aware that the project had completed itself already. And so this was just about revisiting the decision about the fact that we had held back this cash in anticipation of additional requests coming this year that never materialized. So, then the justification to continue to have that lower number, I thought we should have a revision, just a discussion about whether or not that's possible. I have a question, if it's possible, to ask Anna. Okay, so Ms. Royer, so when I look at the backgrounder, so like, I'm assuming that since this came, you talked to Dynamics? Is that like, I haven't talked to Dynamics. Have you discussed it with them? Because they didn't come today. So did they not need like, I understand that the project's been done. I don't know if the extra money was given out, if it would still be eligible or how far, because initially they were asking for like all the money. And then the recommendation was 90,000. And then a council approved 60,000 or something of that nature, or 65,000. So even if they were to get the extra money, would it still be in that envelope what they could? Or can you just let us know what's actually happening on the update on this? Because we didn't have that information when we were having that discussion.
Yep, thanks, Councillor Hughes. So I have spoke to Dynamics. They did choose not to come this morning and speak to the matter, although they were absolutely thrilled, and it certainly put a very positive light to them as far as that this was even a consideration for them. So I just wanted to, if I could just clarify a couple of things. Dynamics initially requested 250,000 from the CSAC, from the Community Capital Grant. The motion moving forward was 94,815, and then at the level of the CLSC, the recommendation was to move it to 65,000. So some of the things Dynamics has had to do in order to actually stay in their building and whatnot is they did have to reduce the scope. It was by about maybe $150,000. They weren't able to purchase their equipment. They actually had to take out a high interest bank loan in order to do that. And because they're not a business, again, they have a high interest loan. I mean, like many other organizations, they have laid off 20-25 of their casual staff. There's impacts that they've had because of COVID, but then there's impacts that they've had as well because of not receiving the money. So again, they are in financial, I mean, they're trying to be very, very careful. They're uncertain of what their future holds. But again, this was in discussion with them this past week as far as what their actual situation was. And yes, I had spoke to them probably about a month prior, maybe mid-March, about how they were doing. And yes, at that time, they certainly told me they were struggling to make ends meet and unsure of the future. I hope that answered all of your questions.
Yeah, so when I read the backgrounder, because they've already submitted their numbers, which I'm assuming because they were given in 2020, they had to submit them, or like, I guess what I'm wondering is, I know that this is an unusual, we've never debated something like this before that I'm aware of in the past 7 years. So I guess in spite of that, is it still an opportunity to have this or not? Because if it's not an opportunity, it's not an opportunity. But I just don't know if we even can give them the money because their books have been sealed for the year, type of thing.
Can I just ask, I don't know, maybe Carrie or Marta might be able to answer that question just in terms of how the policy is laid out.
Yeah. So I think committee chair and committee members, there's kind of two parts to this. One is the bylaw, and the bylaw for the Community Services Advisory Committee is authorized to review, comment, and recommend policies and allocation for grants. So in that kind of a sense, this isn't so out of line. However, there is the community capital grants policy that outlines that once a organization is provided funding, they can't receive funding again for 2 more years. But council always has the opportunity to, I guess, debate and change policy. So I'm going to turn it over to Marta to kind of give some more details around this. That's kind of the 50,000 foot view of it. So I'll let Marta comment on this now.
Thanks, Carrie. Carrie did a very good job outlining the whole situation. Basically, the actual policy itself doesn't speak to this situation. It doesn't contemplate funds being given after a project is completed. It doesn't allow groups to apply for funding every year. It says that groups have to apply, they're only eligible to apply once every 2 years. So the spirit of the policy, this is not in the spirit of the policy. However, as Carrie said, council is able to override its own policy if it so chose. And then, you know, there's opportunity to either amend the policy going forward, clarify things, etc. But in terms of this actual situation, it's not in line with the policy the way it's currently worded.
Okay. And I know you flipped off, but I'm going to ask you one more question. So, let me how to say this. With the policy, it's 1/3 of the money that needs to go forward is what the council can approve, or in the policy. And even though they scaled back their operations because the amount of their renovations was so high that even if we were to give the extra 26,000 towards it, we would still be well below the 1/3 maximum threshold of what they spent, right?
That would be correct. Their budgets, they scaled back, but only by, I don't have the number in front of me, but it was maybe 150,000, 120.
Yeah.
It was minimal. So their entire project was still over $800,000.
Okay. So, I mean, 1/3 of that is still 90,000, still well below that threshold.
Yeah.
Okay. And have they completely done everything? Like, are all the renovations completely done, or like, do you know what I'm saying? Or are they still ongoing?
My understanding is when they scaled back, they took out a number of items out of what they initially planned to do. One of the main ones was the purchase of equipment. And again, they had to take out a loan in order to purchase that equipment. So they've tried to manage, but yes, they have scaled back. There still would be some renovations that needed to be done. They definitely clawed back a bit on I guess the level of work that they were doing in there. So I can't tell you exactly what they have to do yet, but the facility is certainly functional. But
did they say why they didn't want to come this morning?
You know, I think they just really wanted to make sure the discussion was on a positive light. They really were completely unaware. I know they had been hoping maybe for some additional COVID funding, although that may not, come to fruition for them. So they just wanted to stay on a positive light. They are trying to make the best of the situation. And well, like any group, they absolutely would welcome any additional funding. They felt that they've been in front of council numerous times, and maybe one too many, and they would just leave it.
Got it. Okay. Chair Jolly, I'm still willing to bring forward the motion for discussion, but just as a heads up in case anybody's had other questions, that's all.
That's fine. I saw that Councillor Hanson had her hand up. Do you still have a question?
Anna, thanks, Chair Jolly. Anna did answer my questions, and I guess, Anna, if do you have a number that they're short on in terms of the equipment that they would have bought?
I know that loan was for $60,000, so I guess I would say $60,000. They didn't provide any number other than that one.
And so, because I know when we debated this last time, we just kind of arbitrarily changed the number and gave them, I don't know, a number out of the sky, and we reduced their funding, but I wasn't sure what the impact was going to be. So you're telling me it's equipment. And so I'm going to assume that the equipment is still going to ultimately be needed, but they just are not spending that money at this time because they don't have it. Would that be accurate?
It would be, but as I said, they purchased the equipment, but they had to take out a high interest loan to do that.
I see.
Needed that in order to run that facility. So they looked at every potential avenue they could for it. They had sponsorship, fundraising drives, but they still were short that $60,000 for the equipment. So, and
when they came to us and the number was higher, they were within the policy of, they weren't asking for any kind of exemption being outside the policy number. It's like CSAC was able to give them $90,000 it was, but
yes, and
we just changed that.
Yeah, the original request of $250,000 was still within the policy because we don't have a cap, that somebody could come in and request the full amount. And yes, of course, the $94,000 was still within the policy.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you for acknowledging me, Chair Jolly.
Thanks, Councillor Mackay, go ahead.
Yeah, and I think Ray had his hand up first. Do you mind if I jump ahead of you, Ray? Or did you have something? I guess the question follows along the lines of some of the earlier ones, and it's to Anna. So the fact that they had to take a loan out, $60,000 for equipment, and I believe part of their request of the original, well, what was going to be, I guess, what they qualified for of 1/3 of which is 94.8 something. When they went through what that money was for, they had to outline, what each and every item, kind of a breakdown. So in that breakdown was equipment. So now that they've taken the loan out for $60,000 to purchase the equipment, if this recommendation moves forward and it's approved at council, the $25,000, will they still have to account for that in their bookkeeping? And I think Councillor Hughes was kind of asking, are the books closed on that, or how would they count for that $25,000? Because technically they would be applying it to either the loan, or would they be applying it to something else within the building or something along that lines? That's my confusion.
So understanding your question is as far as the accounting that I received back from the organization. Yes, and I would request the receipts as well for the equipment, and just add that into the package as well too. Okay, so
I mean, it could be done that, sorry, I apologize. The $25,000 would be just attached to an accounting, to a line, and you would just go through and say, this is what it was actually for. All right, thank you. I'm sorry, just going to policy, does our policy allow for debt repayment? Like, I don't think it does it?
There is no, it's for the actual project itself. So
yeah,
I mean,
they would have to apply it to something else in the project. Okay.
But they have
all right,
purchased the equipment. Yeah.
Yes, they've purchased the equipment, but so they would, if this was approved, they would have to identify something else within the project that they could apply this money to. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure that was clarified, because we kept talking about the $60,000 loan that they had to buy for equipment, and then you can't use that money to repay back the loan. Anyways, thank you. I just wanted that clarification. Sorry about that, Ray. I jumped in front of you.
Councillor Watkins, do you have a question?
Thank you. I'm a little confused about what the status of the project is. So is everything complete except the purchase of the equipment?
The project is complete and the equipment has been purchased. They have scaled back the project though. So there were additional things that they didn't do in order to meet the budget.
Yeah. And the equipment has been purchased with a higher interest loan?
Yes.
You know the interest rate on that loan? Did they tell you?
No, no.
Okay, because that's kind of, if we say high interest can be, you know, 3% to 22%. So if we don't know that, I'm not too sure. And are they using this money to pay off outstanding bills? And do you know if they still have outstanding bills from the project?
That level of detail, I do not know. I just know what was submitted to me, but I do know they cut back. So there are still items that they would.
But we don't know if there's outstanding bills to be paid on the project.
Not related to what they submitted, no.
And once again, you said that the gymnastics club didn't initiate this request.
No, they did not.
Who initiated this request again?
It came from an in-camera discussion at the CLSC meeting.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Those are my questions.
Okay, any other questions, Mayor Herron? No, okay. Sheena or Councillor Hughes, would you like to put this or read in this motion?
Yeah, and you know, I'm thinking, Brittany, you're probably the one doing this right now. I wanted to change the number to reflect what the intention of the motion was, which is to move it from 25,000 to the 29,415, and so the total will be 94,415. And then, so the motion is going, instead of saying at the end, it's going to say, instead of saying which is closer, it would say which is in line with. So I'll read the whole thing, which is the Community Living Standing Committee recommend to Council the Dynamics Gymnastics Club of St. Albert receive an additional funding for an allocation of $29,415 from the 2021 Community Capital Grant Program, which would increase their capital grant for their new building development to a total of $94,415, which is in alignment with the original 2020 recommendation of CSAC.
Okay, thank you. So I'll accept that, and Councillor Hughes to open.
Okay, so I know this is unusual, but we've been living in unusual times for way too long right now. And there was a very wholesome discussion about this. And the reality is that Dynamics took on this project well before COVID hit, and then was trying to figure out a way to manage it in spite of COVID and in spite of multiple shutdowns, which affects so many things, including the operating. And so when we had this last September, from what when I remember, and definitely the arguments that we had, was we were concerned that there was going to be an overwhelming number of projects that were going to be coming in 2021. We didn't want to use up all the funding for one organization because of the, and then have to say no to many others in the following year because it was all tapped out. Now we fast forward an extra 8 months, and we can now see that we're not having an overwhelming number, and nor were we going to be expecting to have an overwhelming number anytime soon. Having 14 months and counting of various levels of shutdowns affecting all these different organizations, most of them are now just struggling to survive as opposed to being able to work on capital projects. And the capital projects are bringing forward, as we're seeing, are things that are absolutely necessary, and they're trying to put it as minimal as possible because they don't have the funds to pay for the rest of it. So the concerns that we had back in September are just no longer concerns that we have going forward now, looking back. And Dynamics still needs that money. They could still use that money towards their project. It was still a substantial project. I think it was almost $1 million to start, so it's well over 800,000 still as a total cost. And as we speak, they are currently not allowed to function at all to put in any money towards their debt payments or any of their operating costs. And so personally, I have a difficult time saying that we're going to hold back that money for another year, 2022. And what we'll probably be doing in 2021 is rolling over the bulk of that 250,000 in 2022. And at the expense of having one organization that, when we pulled back that money, it was with the honest intentions of worrying about what was going to happen if we had a huge comeback the following year, and that comeback never materialized. So I guess this is an opportunity for us to just say, you know what, we did this at that time, and now we realize that that money is available. It is not going to be used up by another organization in 2021. And so they can still use it to purchase what they need to purchase to allow their organization to hopefully move forward. The fact they can't put it towards debt, they still have the receipts for what they did purchase, and the details of the accounting administration can handle that. And so if they were unable to spend the money, they can't use it. It's not a problem. What we have here, though, is the intention of saying that looking back now, the money that they did, that the money originally recommended by the committee can be used without having it impact another organization and stopping them from getting funding as well. And that was our concern when we had it back in September. We did not know that this was going to go on for 14 months or how many more months it's going to go on for. We didn't know how many organizations are going to be impacted so negatively. And but what we do have is an organization that, in spite of everything, has pursued forward. And in my opinion, any organization that is moving forward through this pandemic and this level of uncertainty, if we can help them out, we should. And this is just about realizing that we have this money available and we could give it to them to spend towards it. Their project is still well within that parameters. And I do not want to have this be a policy change or anything else. This is just about, we had an unusual situation. We've had unusual situations since last March. And we have an opportunity to make this is also unusual for us to not give out the full amount of money. And so it's also unusual for us to go back and reconsider it, but we're living in unusual times. So that's why I would support it. This money, if we don't give it to them or offer it to Dynamics now, is probably just going to be rolled over. And I think that would be a mistake, considering the level of commitment that they've made to our community and the fact that they definitely need it. That's it.
Thank you, Mayor Herron or Councillor Mackay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll jump in really quick. I mean, great opening comments, and I support all of the comments Councillor Hughes put forward. I mean, and so I won't really go over them. Just to refresh committee members' memories, I was against this motion when it came forward at council in September, because at the time, and I completely understand it, as outlined by Councillor Hughes, we were living in some pretty unprecedented times. We didn't know where we were going to be. Nobody anticipated we'd still be in the middle of, or maybe slowly coming out of a pandemic. But at the same time, we had just come fresh off of a discussion as to whether or not we wanted to eliminate the entire community capital grant. So that would have been a whole $250,000 that we were going to put into COVID recovery. And we fought hard to keep that because we saw the impacts that would possibly have on our community organizations. And we did see that even in the limited number of grants that went out in this term. So, I mean, when it came in front of council, I didn't see why we would just, and I used the term at the time, arbitrarily take the recommendations, the requests from a community organization that fit the parameters of the grant program. And so we made that we made a decision that time that was unprecedented, and I understand that. But here's an opportunity, I think, to go back and fix that. And you've often heard me say that sometimes our decision comes with unintended consequences. And this time, we actually see what the consequences of that decision was. We ended up in a situation where we caused a great deal of stress to a community organization. Yes, they were able to fight through it, but some of their strategies may put them in a real risky situation going forward. So here's an opportunity just to not even fix something, but just to give something give the amount back that they're entitled to, that they asked for, and what was the original recommendation. So I would urge committee members to at least put this forward so that we can actually get it to council, so we can have a good discussion in front of council. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to go over all of the reasons that, because I believe Councillor Hughes really outlined them very well. But I'm going to support this moving forward because I think this is a discussion we need to have at council. So I'm going to end my comments on that.
Thank you, Mayor Heron.
Thank you, Chair Jolly. I'm not supporting this motion, and I'll tell you why. First of all, I can't even believe we're having the conversation. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and we are about to go into a workshop on our growth plan and talk about the lack of capital dollars we have in this community. And so if we're going to break policy, which this is entirely doing, I would assume the gymnastics club would be using the money to help with their loan, which I would, I get it, and I would support helping them, but with a different process. This process is, there is no process here. We have a policy. And if we have extra dollars, first of all, I think if we have any extra dollars, it should stop rolling over into the next budget year when we put it towards our capital plan. I know of groups that want to bring croco curling. I think Diane Enger's on the line and she knows croco curling, but they're not an organized group yet, so they can't go through this grant application. So it'll have to fall in the city. But that would be a community recreational type activity, very much like disc golf. Again, there's not an organized group, so they couldn't apply for the community grant, so the city does it. We are trying to build community amenities for the whole community. And don't forget that Dynamics is available to those that pay to go in. This is not a publicly available space. It's a not-for-profit, and I support that. If you want to break the policy, why don't we open up the grant for all not-for-profits? Come and tell us your needs because of the pandemic. Tell us if you're, like the Eagles just sent me an email that they had to shut down because of pandemic. They actually want to offer space, but they're in a need. The Legion's in need. All the sports groups are. If you want to break policy, why aren't we giving more than a third to the ones that actually applied this year? Because we didn't give them their full funding, and they are in need, but they can't fundraise right now. Everyone is in need, and I get that. So if we want to spend a random dollar figure, then let's have a process for it. Ask people to apply. Maybe we could put it back out to the businesses that are suffering, but this is just a random dollar figure when somebody didn't even ask for it. And there's a need everywhere. And one of the other biggest needs is the city of St. Albert and our tax rate and the capital plan that we're struggling with. And I'm just really frustrated that we're even having this conversation. So I would love to make this a little bit more holistic. If you want to support not-for-profits in our community during a pandemic, let's do that. Let's talk about the recovery task force. But this process is bizarre, and I'm not supporting it today. Sorry, you can tell I'm in a frustrating mood. I always get this reputation as a big spender. I don't know why, but I'm tight with our city dollars, and we as a council need to be tight with our dollars during the pandemic.
Thank you, Mayor Heron. I would echo everything that you said. I think my voice isn't shaking like yours because I had a really restful weekend. I was gardening. But I'm not supporting this for all of the reasons that you mentioned, Mayor Heron. And kind of the notes that I scribbled down here is that, are we inviting all organizations to ask for more funds? And I mean, this group didn't ask for more funds, but does it not matter if they're eligible or not? And like Mayor Heron mentioned, I could name a dozen or 2 dozen or 3 dozen or 5 dozen organizations that are struggling right now because of the pandemic. And really, if we want to open up funding for COVID relief, that is a discussion that we should absolutely have. This is completely inappropriate to have that discussion here. So I'll leave that to Councillor Hughes to close.
Okay, thank you. So I know how the vote's going to go, but my God, I've got a few things to say on closing. This is, they did not come. I didn't have any discussions with them. This committee had a discussion in camera, and I'm not a voting member, and they chose to bring forward a motion, and they chose to bring it forward. And personally, I'm extremely insulted that you should say to the committee that what they did was inappropriate. We just had a discussion last month discussing transit routes for $500,000 brought forward by a committee, and they were not told that what they were brought forward was inappropriate. So if committees have recommendations and they want council or this committee to discuss them, or any committee, they have the right to have that conversation, and it is not inappropriate for any of us to have that further discussion. So I just want to be absolutely clear on that. And if we're going to say the committee shouldn't be bringing forward recommendations because we disagree with their decision, then we need to have that discussion as a separate item. Just because you disagree with the committee's recommendation does not mean it's inappropriate for them to bring it forward. So number one. Number two, this is about discussing about if we had a crystal ball back in last September, would we have still given them $90,000, or would we have given them only 65? That is what this is about. Because the recommendation from the committee was not accepted at the time, and we had our rationale, and now we have a rearview mirror. And that is why this is being brought forward, is that now you have the rearview mirror, now you can see what the actual funding is. Now the justification for why the money was withheld is not really valid anymore. So do you actually still want to give them 65,000, or do you want to give them the 94,000 that was being recommended? And perhaps you still want to give them 65, and perhaps council would have given them 65 regardless, but that discussion needs to be allowed to happen. And so that's why it was brought forward, was that what do you want to do now that you know what actually happens at the end of the ball game? So this is not about picking a favorite organization or any of the thing of the sort. My children have never been in dynamics. I think my daughter was in it like 15 years ago. This is not about a favorite organization or saying that one deserves it more than another, because I understand that every organization is suffering right now. This is about deciding whether or not a decision that was made 8 months ago, knowing the results of what happened and knowing the demand is not there, if you would still do what you do today. And wherever the decision is, that's the decision. But this isn't, and also the idea of it being random, initially the playgrounds were around $60,000 was the maximum they could get. So it's kind of in alignment with that. So were they asking for a high amount? Yeah. Did we just give $160,000 to the curling club in the past, an extra $60,000 because they are owned by the community? Yes. So the city owns it. We give them an extra $60,000 because they come and ask for it. And so it's very difficult in my mind to justify how we did that, just saying because it's a city-owned building that they get the extra money under COVID. And then saying that this organization that we withheld because we did not know what was going to happen in 2021 should not even have a discussion about whether or not they should get the original allocation. So this is, and also this is not going to affect the tax rate. And if we were to drop it off and say that the rest of the money is coming off the taxes, it would be a one-time savings and then a tax increase the following year. So this is, and also if we were, the reason why this money is rolling in and why the policy was changed back to allow it to roll in is because some years the money became, we had $500,000 in requests and $250,000 in money to spend. And a lot of organizations had to be turned away, which is one of the reasons why it was brought over to roll over at this time. So it was try to prevent that from happening. So this was about using that money as the ebbs and flows came and be able to handle it when there was a larger flow, which is why we have a rolling budget again, was that if 3 places come with playgrounds in the same year, the money's all shot and the other organizations can't have it. So this is about just looking back and deciding it. But there's nothing wrong with this motion to being forward for discussion. There's nothing wrong with coming back and revisiting decisions and saying, you know what, now that we know better, do we still want to do it? There's nothing wrong with doing that. And I'm quite insulted that we should say that this organization or this committee is not allowed to even have these discussions, and that council shouldn't be revisiting decisions knowing better. Because council should go back and look at decisions. And they should go back and say, now that we know better, what would we do? And if you would say you still do the same, fine, but please do not insult this committee or the advisory committee that brought forward something and just said, come back and look at it again. because that is just an absolute insult to the entire process. So if this council chooses not to do anything differently, they choose not to do anything differently. And should we be discussing what we're going to be doing to help organizations in the recovery? Probably, if the recovery manifests itself in some timely fashion. But this is just about whether or not you would do what you would do if you knew better. And personally, if I knew that the demands were as low as they are going to be, and probably moving forward as slow as they're going to be for the next while, I would have absolutely said, let's give them the $94,815. Because the amount of money they're putting into this project, going and through it an entire pandemic, I would not have hesitated to say, let's at least give them that much, because it's still going to be well below what they'd require. I'll let the chips fall how they may, and I understand. I kind of thought this is how the vote was going to go beforehand, but I don't think that it's insulting to actually offer an organization help in this, no matter when they came, and they did come and ask for it before. We just had said no. That's it.
So, okay, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? That fails. Thank you. So Lorraine, I just want to thank you for being here today. I messaged you and I just said that I spent 2 terms on CSAC, so I know how much work it is to go through those application packages, and you guys are doing such a great job. I'd also throw it, it's not always this heated in our discussions, but every once in a while it is, and we have a lot of passion in this community. So please pass on our thanks for all the work the committee is doing. I think you'll have your next big intake will be in September, I think, is the next big grant program.
Yeah.
So good luck with that one. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. And you know what? I'm glad that our council is so passionate about things, because that just means things are getting done. So thank you. Have a wonderful morning, and I will see you guys later.
Thank you. Take care. And with that, and Cheryl, please interrupt me if I'm wrong. I believe it is time to adjourn this meeting. We're good? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to adjourn the meeting and see everyone at 11:30.